People were very open around me about their perceptions and about how their attitudes towards blacks. And I definitely struggled with that. And I think it got worse as I got older, where I would look in the mirror, and it took me years to realize I was the problem, but I would literally look in the mirror as a teenager, ask Hashem, I'd ask God, like, why? Why did I have to be black when all my friends, my whole community, everybody around me wasn't?
Yossi was faced with a tremendous challenge. After his mother reshaped her life, Reb Yossi was thrown into a Chabad upbringing. When he was younger, he was bullied and made to believe that he was less than because he didn't fit in. Unfortunately, he fell out of place, ashamed and ostracized from the color of his skin, or more particularly, how others made him feel about it. Until a fateful meeting with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This week is the Rebbe's 30th yahrzeit, and you will hear more about his legacy in the outro. This episode is powered by my favorite clothing brand in the world, Twillery, the best software solutions company ever, Bitbean, the gorgeous furniture brand that Lingers recently discovered, LexMod, and my friend Yankee from the SBA Loan Group, where they help you secure financing for all of your business needs. This episode is in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima, as well as Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Rabbi Yossi Kulek, thank you so much for doing this, and we have a lot to talk about. But first, personally, about you, your story, your background. Could you tell us about what your life was like growing up, and maybe even before that, like before you got into the picture?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here.
Sure.
Appreciate the opportunity. Had you called me 10 years ago, I probably would have said no, but this has been part of my journey, and I'm excited for the opportunity. My story really goes back to a year before I was born, 1975. My uncle Mike, who was a secular kid in Cleveland, he was an eccentric guy, still is. Now he lives in Israel, but he used to like wearing red. That was his shtick. In the 70s, he walked around wearing all red.
Like red yarmulke, red shirt?
Well, once he became frum, he started wearing a red yarmulke too. But,
he was. Okay, you said he was secular. Sorry, yes.
Right, at the time, he wore red pants, red shirts, with very flamboyant. And he felt, hey, I like the color. This is how I identify. And in the summer of 75, I'm guessing, summer of 75, he was walking the streets of Cleveland, and these yeshiva bachrim, these Chabad students who were there doing outreach for the Rebbe and for Chabad, approached him and invited him to the Chabad house, put on tefillin, and then that led to coming to the Chabad house. And he thought these guys were amazing. He's like, wow, these are the coolest dudes. They wear their Judaism with pride, and they're out there. They have their, their yarmulke, their tzitzis. They don't care about anybody. They're the real deal. And he got involved, he started learning, and became a regular at the Chabad house. In the meantime, in 1975, my mother was a teenager, and she just wanted to fit in, be part of the popular crowd. She met this, at least so she tells me, she met this charismatic, good-looking African-American young man, same age as her, and they started hanging out together, started going to parties together, and sure enough, my mother, who was a very studious girl before that, started becoming part of the in crowd and hanging out with this charming African-American Robert. One thing led to another, and she was in love, and I'm not sure why, but she says she really wanted to have a child at that point, and they thought they were going to get married, and I was conceived. But once she became pregnant with me, it got very, very difficult. He was not good to her. A few years ago, when I was doing my journey, I actually spoke to him for the first time. And he himself, the first thing he told me was that I did X, Y, and Z to your mother. He used to beat her. He was cheating on her. He would lie to her. And, she was in hell. But my mother really, like many other abused women, really felt like she was in love. She felt this was the right person for her. So even though she had never done Yom Kippur and never had any religious life growing up, she would daven. She would pray to Hashem. She'd pray to God, please help me. Please, what she wanted was that Robert should become warmer, nicer, be loyal to her. That's not what happened. I was born, in 1976. And my mother was living with my grandparents, but Robert, I think, was living there as well, or was around a lot. He was always there. And when I was about 6 months old, Robert comes in, he sees my grandmother holding me or something, and he takes me away from her and yells at her, don't you ever touch my son. I don't want you ever to touch him. My mother was sitting there. She saw the hurt in her mother's eyes, and she says that was a pivotal moment. That was the moment she knew that it's one thing to hurt myself. It's one thing for me to put up with what I was putting up with, but to do that to my mother, who has unconditional love, she couldn't do it. So that day she told my grandmother, I'm ready. If you find me, I'm ready to move out. Or I'm ready to move on. The problem was my mother was young. She was only 17 years old. And none of the domestic abuse shelters in Cleveland would take her. She was too young, a minor, they weren't going to take her. My grandmother knew that my uncle had been going to this Chabad house, had been going to the Alevsky's Chabad house in Cleveland. Mrs. Alevsky was the daughter of Rebbe Kazin, who was the pioneer of Chabad in Cleveland, sent by the Rebbe. And she called and asked for help. Same day, without much thought, the Alevskys took my mother and myself into their home with them. They were young themselves. Maybe had a couple babies, but they were young. They took us with a 6-month-old child into their home and saved my mother, saved me. And that was the beginning of my connection, but it was an important moment for me. And every step that happened since then, I feel the hand of the Rebbe was involved. It was the Rebbe's vision. It was the Rebbe's love for every single neshama, for every soul, for every Jew that just paved the way for me. I mean, had it not been for the Rebbe sending out these young emissaries to Cleveland, for those yeshiva students who were sent by the Rebbe and doing the Rebbe's work, meeting my uncle, who knows what would have been.
That's wild. Could you take us back to your first memories of meeting the Lubavitcher Rebbe?
So, my mother, right after a few weeks, or that summer, it was right before Shavuos of 1976. The Alevskys asked my mother, would she be interested in going to study in yeshiva seminary, Machon Chana in New York. My mother, who just being in the Chabad house with me and seeing what it means to be a Jew, had decided this is the life for my son. This is how I could save my son. This is what he needs. This is what I'm going to do for her. And she's told me then and told me many times since then that I was really a gift from God for her. And every decision and every choice that she made really evolved around me. And that's really my mother's personality. She's very selfless. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, but she always put her kids first. She would wear shmatas, but she always made sure that the kids had clothing, and that's the way that's the way she operates. So she agrees to go to New York. They put her on a Greyhound bus with a 6-month-old baby. She comes to New York. New York's not a seminary, whether it's Chabad or not Chabad. There's no seminary that's set up to have a young mother with a newborn baby. So my mother had to, rent a basement apartment and had to find work. But together with, people in the community, people really reached out and helped her. She found a way to go to yeshiva and at the same time provide for me and for us. When I was 4 years old, she met the man who would become the only father that I know. And as was common, it's always common for us to go to the Rebbe for a blessing after we, or when we want to get engaged. We want the Rebbe's reassurance, the Rebbe's blessing that the marriage should be a good marriage with all the blessings that come along with that. In those days, so this is 1981, I believe. In those days, it was still possible to meet with the Rebbe one-on-one. We called it Yechidus. And My parents, being that they were wanted to get engaged, they had an opportunity middle of the night to go to the Rebbe and meet with the Rebbe one-on-one. They decided to bring me along, even though other decisions that they made, they thought it would be best that I wasn't in the picture. So, for example, their wedding, I wasn't at the wedding. I knew they were getting married, but I wasn't at the wedding because they wanted that my siblings and everybody growing up would see that there would be nothing different about me. They didn't want me to just stick out in the picture. They felt that it would be best for me to just integrate me, which was a beautiful idea. But when it came to going to the Rebbe, they wanted me to come with them. And they brought me along. And both my father and mother tell anybody who asks that yechidus, that encounter, became about me. And, I have these vague memories of Rosh Hashanah as a little child in Crown Heights in 770, trying to hear the shofar and seeing the Rebbe actually from the ladies' side, seeing it from the balcony. But my first vivid memory of the Rebbe and spending time with the Rebbe was that yechidus. And I'm 4 years old. I remember this big wooden desk. It was taller than me at the time. And the Rebbe's sitting behind it and looking down over it with his famous smile. And he was asking me about the mitzvah of tzitzis. And he asked me, do I have one string? I said, yes. And he kept prompting me, 1, 2, 3, up to 8 strings. And I just kept saying yes. I don't remember saying anything else. Just kept saying yes. But that experience really has stayed with me for life. It's been a big source of strength through some of my difficult times.
What about that encounter was so powerful for you? That, along with every interaction and everything that happened after that, the Rebbe was telling me he loved me, and the Rebbe was telling me that I mattered, and I held that very dear. That no matter what anyone else said to me, no matter whatever else happened, I always said, you know what, the Rebbe loves me. The Rebbe believes in me. I'm in this for the Rebbe, and as I got older and I had an opportunity to learn Chassidus and to learn the Rebbe's teachings and had more interaction with the Rebbe, there's no one who encountered the Rebbe that didn't see his unconditional love. His message that he gave over and over again, that he counted every one of us as a precious diamond, that he wanted to polish and that he, wanted to count and cared about us. And that was always the feeling I got from the Rebbe. I don't have a lot of memories from being 4 years old. And when I think back, some of the other memories were maybe more traumatic. The babysitter who kept me in a corner of the day after day and would tell me, yell at me and tell me that I destroyed their furniture or something, and I just have to sit there. I don't know if she was discriminating against me or just a bully, but that's a negative memory I have from when I was 4 years old. I have a memory of climbing on the back of a handyman's car with my friends in Crown Heights, and I must have been 3 or 4, and we were still in the basement. And I remember even falling off and scraping my knees. So I guess sometimes you have these incidents that are traumatic that stick with you. But with the Rebbe, it was his love, that look, that experience. The Rebbe never let me forget it. That it just became a constant in my life. We'll be right back to Yossi's story, and it gets deep now. But first, I want to ask if you're looking for stylish, affordable, and high-quality furniture. Look no further than LexMod.com. My wife and I couldn't be happier with our Nolan Arch storage display. It's added both elegance and functionality to our home. Literally, everyone who sees it asks us where we got it. And we're in the middle of furnishing our outdoor space with their beautiful pieces. There's so much there. LexMod.com is the go-to for all your furniture needs. Whether you're after a plush velvet sofa, a top-notch mattress, or a sleek bathroom vanity, they've got it all. Their products perfectly blend modern style with great quality, making it easy to find exactly what you're looking for at the prices you'll love. Legit, they have insanely low prices. For Inspiration listeners, here's an exclusive offer. You'll get 20% off your entire order. And to make things even better, LexMod offers free shipping and returns. So if you're in the tri-state the area, you can also enjoy the premium white glove service for an extra touch of convenience. Just use code word INSPIRE for 20% off. Don't miss out on transforming your home with LexMod's fantastic furniture. Head over to LexMod.com, use our special discount INSPIRE for 20% off, and start creating the home of your dreams today. Now, before we delve right back, business owners, this one's for you. A year ago, I sat down for dinner with my wife, and by divine providence, we had the pleasure of meeting Yanki, CEO of SBA Loan Group. He's a sweet, direct, and honest guy who I could tell appreciated a good steak. If you've ever read Ami magazine, you know exactly who I'm talking about. If you're thinking about buying a property for your business, you should be thinking about SBA financing. As long as your business occupies at least 51% of the property, you can secure funding with as little as 10% down. Even better, there are options available with no money down. I'll say that again, with no money down. You can use SBA funds to buy equipment, buy out a partner, manage inventory, or boost your working capital. These financing solutions are designed to help your business grow and succeed. So to qualify, you need at least 1 year business with cash flow sufficient to support loan payments, verified by tax returns, a credit score of 680 or higher, no bankruptcies, no open judgments, and no outstanding liens. Don't miss an opportunity to elevate your business. And what I like the most about Yanki is how transparent he is, which is crucial when it comes to SBA loans. You can call his cell directly. That's 718-744-7459. I'm going to say that again, 718-744-7459, or send them an email. It's Yanki at SBALoanGroup.com. It's Yanki spelled at YANKIE @SBA loangroup.com. Contact SBA Loan Group today to learn more about these financing options and take the next step toward your business's success. Now back to my conversation with Reb Yossi. Did your feeling of being different come more from you internally, or did it come from the people around you?
It's a good question. I've been on a journey where I've been thinking about a lot about this, and something that I've been processing myself probably for a number of years now. And answer that I would give you is that when I was very little, I didn't notice anything. I mean, I might have known that I was dark-skinned, but I don't have any memories as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old, or I certainly didn't process at that time anybody treating me differently or that I was different. In fact, my most vivid memory where I knew that, wait a minute, this is my being discriminated against, this is my being told I'm different, was actually on the street doing the Rebbe's work. My mother, maybe because of my own coming into existence or coming to Lubavitch with my mother, but she has a tremendous love for Mitzvayim. She loves to go out and before every Yom Tov, or any opportunity she has to encourage a woman to light Shabbos candles or to tell them about the different Yom Tov that's coming up. She'll just go out and go on the streets and interact with people. It was Sukkot. I think I was turning 9. So I must have been about 9. And my mother encouraged me, it was Sukkot, and she encouraged me to take the lulav and esrog and to go stand in front of this restaurant called The Bagel. And I was asking people, we'd like to do a mitzvah, stopping people as they walk into this Jewish-style restaurant that wasn't kosher. And this one older gentleman looked at me and he laughed. And he said, I look more Jewish than you. And I don't know, that's a moment that really, really had stuck with me. As I got older, I did process being perceived differently, looked at differently. Some of it happened from people I interacted with, from the youth that I interacted with, and some of it happened because of depending where I was in my life. As I hit like my middle school age, as I hit my adolescent, I kind of learned the hard way that it wasn't the best idea to tell people that my father was black. The first friend that I remember, I was maybe at that time 10, 11 years old, I remember telling it to him about him, and it was a secret. I didn't want him to tell anybody. I told him. Next thing I knew, everybody knew about it, and people were joking about it or teasing me about it or calling me names. So that kind of put in me this, that it's better not to say anything. I shied away from telling people about myself. If they asked me, I would give some vague answer. I'd either say, I don't know why that's an appropriate question, and I would just say, I'm a mixed mutt, that I would just say it's vaguely, give some vague answer. But what happened as a result, wherever I was, people were sometimes maybe they thought I was Sephardic, maybe I was just one of the kids in the neighborhood. But people were very open around me about their perceptions and about how their attitudes towards blacks. And I definitely struggled with that. And I think it got worse as I got older, where I would look in the mirror, and it took me years to realize I was the problem, but I would literally look in the mirror as a teenager, ask Hashem, I'd ask God, like, why? Why did I have to be black when all my friends, my whole community, everybody around me wasn't? Why can't I just be like everybody else? It was years later that I audibilized, and I actually said I was on a birthright trip. I'm a Chabad on campus rabbi, and I was with a group of students. And I was on the phone with my mother. I'm starting to go through this journey. And I said, I told her, I am ashamed that I'm black. And this, I guess, internalized racism was really eating at me. And that was really just what everybody would say around me, all the stereotypes and all the negative, things that people say about, that they might say about blacks, African Americans. I heard them. I knew what people thought, and some of it I internalized. Didn't help the different times that I was told you're black, or called a schwarz, or worse. Sometimes I had friends that stuck up for me, friends who, no matter what, had my back. I remember, must have been about 12 years old. That was the summer I was 12. In Chicago, where I grew up, the Soloveitchik family was Reb Aaron's grandchildren. And one of the boys, Meir Yaakov, Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik now, he was in my class and was a good friend. And his cousins, Yisrael Yosef, who passed away, was in my class. And then his older brother, Shmuley, they all became my good friends. I used to hang out at Brisk Yeshiva. I went to Yeshiva's kites there after my bar mitzvah. And I remember 12 years old hanging out with the boys near Brisk Yeshiva. And the boy calls me the N-word. And I don't know if, I don't think Shmuel will mind me saying this, but I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to react to that. I was always, my mother would always try to encourage me, look, sticks and stones will break your bones. Don't let it get to you. So I never really said anything. And being athletic and fun and running around, I don't know if those who would start up with me even knew that they were getting to me. But I remember Shmuel couldn't handle it, and he just immediately decked the kid.
Wow.
And just immediately. And yeah, I even get a little emotional thinking about it. I had some good friends who really protected me and stuck up for me, but there were times that were hard.
It's hard to go through. And at that time, your mother and stepfather is now having more and more kids. As they have more children, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of 11?
I'm the oldest of 12.
You're oldest of 12. As they're having more children, did you start to feel more out of place, or the opposite?
It's a great question, because I know my mother, as I've gone through the journey and had this conversation with my mother in more recent times, even we just celebrated my father's 70th birthday, and I was talking to my mother, and she looked at me and she said, this, was so important to us that you shouldn't feel like you were different, that we shouldn't be treated differently. We just wanted you to be part of the family. And she asked, was that a mistake? Because in doing so, there was a part of me that we weren't recognizing. There was a part of me that we weren't discussing. When it comes to my family, 100% it was the right thing. My family's always been my safe haven. Every one of my siblings looks at me the same as they look at the rest of them. I'm not a half-brother. I've never considered myself a half-brother. They've never tried to look at me that way. On the contrary, I'm the oldest brother. They all look up to me. When my siblings were, 11 of us are married, but when my siblings, each of them, when they would be dating, they would come to me, and I was the big brother. I was 6 years older than my next sibling. and they would come and ask me for, advice. My sister, that's 6 years younger than me, when she was in high school, we used to learn Chumash and Mefarshim together. No, my family, my siblings have always adored me, and I think they still do. They make me feel like I'm on top of the world. So they were always my source of strength. But the reality is, I don't think it was because of them. It was just the setting that I was in, the neighborhood that I was in, having parents that are white. You're different.
Were you scared to meet your biological father?
I didn't know my biological father was alive. Talk about people protecting people. I think my grandmother, in hindsight, we think that she passed away from cancer a number of years ago. Yana Machla. But my mother and I think that she told my mother that she had heard he was killed, to try to help my mother with her anxiety and fear of him. Certainly, up until about I was 4 years old, and up until my mother got remarried, he was coming knocking on my grandparents' door looking for me, and then he kind of stopped. I found out years later that he did spend a few years in jail, and that was why he had stopped. And then when he tried to pick it up several years later, my mother was long gone. So growing up, I didn't know if he was alive. I was just told he was dead. And for the longest time, it didn't really matter to me. On the contrary, I didn't want to explore it because, like I said, I have a father, I have a mother. I don't call my father, I call my father Tati. He's not my stepfather. He adopted me when I was 6 years old. And he's, like I said, he's the only father that I have. But he's been my hero. I haven't lacked anything. I've been blessed. And like I said, I have a beautiful family of 11 siblings, and I'm embarrassed to say I've lost track of how many nephews and nieces, but I think last I heard it's over 40, but so I didn't have this tremendous urge to meet him. But as I started to face my own feelings and trying to understand these feelings of shame and trying to understand these feelings of belonging and what's my place in the community, in Yiddishkeit, I started to want to know more. And like I said, I knew all the stereotypes about blacks, so I wanted to know more about where I came from. So I started researching and I started, Googling, and I didn't tell anybody. Or maybe I told my mother in passing that I was like Googling, but I didn't, like even my wife, I was like very quiet about it, just searching. But eventually I found him. Even then I didn't have a phone number. I couldn't find his phone number. But I had one of my alumni was getting married in Cleveland. And if I can, I try to go to the simchas of our alumni for us, to have the alumni marrying Jewish, and that is our pride and joy as campus rabbi and Rebbe shluchim. So I went to Cleveland, rented a car. I said, I'm here anyhow. And I found one of his brothers. We met at his apartment, pleasant conversation. He showed me some pictures, and I gave him my number. Didn't really agree to meet my father, talk to my father, but my biological father, that is, but I gave it to him. And he, a week later, my biological father calls me and says, this is Robert, and he introduced himself. And he wanted a relationship. He wanted to come visit. He was already volunteering to come to Hartford. He wanted to meet my children. And I told him I'm not ready for that. He acknowledged right there on the phone with me, my first conversation with him, he acknowledged what he had done to my mother. And he also, I wasn't so sure with some of the stories he was telling me. Some of it was a little sketchy, so I hesitated. And then, while I was processing that, I got feedback from my parents. So my mother, who has always been encouraging, no matter what I've done, she's always been my support. She panicked when I told her that I found him. Her trauma, what she had dealt with 40 years before that, had never been dealt with. She had just, as a young 18-year-old, entered the Chabad community and just moved on with her life. So this fear and what she had experienced with him was a real challenge for her. She came back to me a few weeks later and said, look, I understand it's your journey. She did her own work in counseling, and she said, you have my blessing. Go if you need to, go do what you got to do. But I hesitated, and I wasn't even sure I wanted to. And she then told me, at a different conversation, she admitted to me that my father, my adopted father, was struggling to understand. Like, he was saying, why would you want to meet somebody who hurt your mother? But he was also saying that you have a father, you have a family. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was hurting him. My father's a quiet guy. So he would never ever admit that to me. But I realized, wow, in my own little search, I'm not really thinking about my parents. And I was able to, find completeness and find understanding in other ways, and decided I had no desire to meet him. Maybe a year later or 2 years later, he messaged me on Thanksgiving, said he was thinking of me, this and that. And I told him, look, I'm not really interested. I said, I can't get past what you did to my mother. I'm not interested. And it was actually only this year that his family reached out to me and said, hey, our father died. We knew of you, so we looked you up on his phone, and we're just letting you know. So that door is closed.
It's very strong of you to really put your understandably curious search for finding your biological father. I think that's natural and normal. Even if whoever, even someone who was worse than your father, who did worse things, it's very normal for a child to want to meet them. But it's so big of you to be like, if it's gonna hurt my parents now, it's not worth it. I'll put my curiosity to the side, and there's bigger people in my life that I care about.
Yeah. This experience, my growing up, and some of the things that I had to deal with, really, and I give my parents both tremendous credit for this, really taught me a lot of empathy. My family will often tell me, so I'd rather say it in their names, that I often put other people before myself. And actually, that makes me feel good about myself. I feel good when I'm able to give and help others. So that's really, to me, that's normal behavior. And I try to be sensitive to other people's feelings. But yeah, like I said, as I was able to evolve, and as I was able to, study more Chassidus and the teachings of the Rebbe, it was very clear to me that the reasons I was interested in this curiosity was probably wrong placed. It was coming from a place of my own shame and my own questions and doubts. But once I realized, based on what we learned in Derech Mitzvah Secha, from the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, that every neshama, every one of us has infinite value. And we are precious, we are pure. A yid is a yid. And as the Baal Shem Tov would say, if somebody sees a flaw in someone else, that's just a reflection of themselves. So I really, it wasn't easy, but I really came to the point where I realized I'm not the problem. It's not me. The other people have to work on themselves. There are other people, if they see me differently, that's on them. And once I was able to understand that I'm good, and yeah, we all have our flaws. And before that, every time I made a mistake, I beat myself up. I would ask myself, is there something wrong that why I have this machshava zara, that I have this bad thought, or that I did this mistake, or I did this. After that, I started to realize, we're all human. That's also basics in Chassidus. And, we all try to be the best person we can. We all have inherently good in us. And, it would, once I was more in peace with myself, I didn't need to discover something that wasn't really wasn't important to who I am, to the yid, the son, the father, the brother. I try to be the chassid of the Rebbe, the shliach, helping others, making a difference, and that doesn't change my narrative.
The core of my conversation with Rabbi Yossi is about the essence of a person, and we will uncover what that is in the next few moments. But what makes the essence of a business? Get ready to unlock your business's core potential with BitBean, the software solution that's made a world of a difference for hundreds of companies. As a business owner, I've experienced firsthand how BitBean's team dives deep into challenges, uncovering core issues and crafting custom solutions that truly drive results. Imagine smoother operations, happier customers, and effortless scaling. That's the BitBean magic. Their innovative software is designed to adapt to your unique needs. And that means they will custom tailor the software for your business. So whether you're a startup finding your footing or you're an established company aiming to soar higher, one powerful idea that sets BitBean apart is their commitment to continuous improvement. They don't just implement solutions and walk away. They stay with you, refining and optimizing to ensure your business keeps evolving. Why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary? With BitBean, so many have enjoyed seamless integration, top-notch support, and a strategy that grows with their business. Countless businesses have thrived with BitBean's expertise. If you're looking for a partner that's as passionate about your success as you are, look no further. BitBean, where innovation meets scalability. Go to bitbean.com for more information. And before we get back, discover the best in men's fashion at Twillory.com. As a loyal customer, I can vouch for their incredible flex suits, which I'm wearing right now, and the game-changing air suit. Yes, it's not cheap, but neither is their premium material. I've had Twillory clothing for over 6 years now, and it still looks brand new. No pilling, and it's machine washable. Don't settle for Amazon knockoffs when you can have quality that lasts. Plus, podcast listeners get $18 off their first order of $126 and over. Of course, the shipping is free at that point, and so are the returns. Upgrade your wardrobe with Twillory's exceptional suits and experience that will make you look different in the best way possible. Visit Twillory.com today and keep your style game on. Now back to this week's episode. Was there a moment where you took your challenges, your struggles, in your words, your shame that you had, that you kind of flipped it around and you're like, now this is now kind of part of my identity. It kind of molded me into who I am?
There were moments. Some of the moments actually started before I faced my identity, before I even realized my identity. A pivotal moment actually goes back to 2007. And from a timeline standpoint, I started speaking to a therapist and started really trying to figure myself out in 2010. But in 2007, it's been a while, but in 2000, my wife and I were brought out to the West Hartford community to be shluchim, to serve under Rabbi and Mrs. Guppin. And our first role there was really working with the community, working with families, doing family programs, making Shabbos dinners, and doing the different Yom Tovim. My first big event was a Purim Suda that we made for 200 people. And the summer camp was a big part of what I did there, Camp Gan Israel. But another Chabad Rabbi who had been in the neighborhood, he had a little bit of a connection with the University of Hartford, had asked me if I could take over this lunch and learn that he was doing once in a while at Hillel. And so I took it over. I myself had some background working with college students going back to the first job I got after Smicha, where I was in a sentence Tzfat in Israel, and I was working with college students. So I had a joy for it, and I started doing this in 2001 probably. By 2007, I was really at a crossroads. I guess Baruch Hashem was successful, but I was so busy and it was so hard to balance my running the day camp and at the same time my Chabad on campus activities and my community activities. Something had to give, and that was really when my wife and I really started to first discuss, okay, what are we going to do? The winter of 2007, I took a group of University of Hartford students to Israel on birthright, and I had also with us, it was about 10 University of Harvard students, about 10 NYU students, and the rest were students from all over the East Coast. when it came to that group of University of Harvard students, it was a very difficult trip. I really felt like a babysitter. I felt like, this was before they changed some of their policies with birthright. These kids were getting drunk and they were hungover on the bus, and they didn't take anything seriously. So even though in hindsight, some of those same guys will tell you, oh, we had a fantastic time with Rabbi Kulek, it was difficult for me. In the meantime, the NYU guys, they might have also, had a few l'chaims here and there, but they would sit with me at night and we would farbrang and we would talk Torah, and they had a ton of questions for me. It was just, it was very different experience. So I get back to Hartford and I'm on the phone with my first student president, who became a very close friend, Shia Speeder. When I met him, he was Josh Speeder. And I told him, I said, I don't know. Am I making a difference? What am I doing here? Do they even want me? Do they even appreciate, just, I told him about this tough trip. He got upset with me. And he said, what are you kidding? He said, like I said, when I met him, he was Josh. He said, I wouldn't be religious today. I wouldn't be frum. I wouldn't be Shomer Shabbos, not for you today. And then he started saying, what about Brian? And what about Evan? And what about Brett? So go ask them if you made a difference in their lives. And that was a real aha moment. I realized that we're all put at different places where that's the right place for us. And I was able to process, as I was going through my healing and as I was going through my own growth, I was able to process that my experiences have given me the strength that have made me who I am. It's because of my biracial identity. It's because of some of the negative experiences that I had where some people were very, were hard on me. It wasn't just, kids. Sometimes it was even, a rabbi here and there that I wanted to respect. Different memories that I wasn't fond of. But the root of what I felt from all those people who didn't treat me like themselves was rejection, that they didn't accept me. So it's really how I try to approach anybody and everybody that I meet. And not just Yidden. I really try to approach everyone with love. I try to, and again, my mentor and my guide is the Rebbe. It's the Rebbe's teachings going all the way back to 1951 when he accepted his leadership. And he said that it's our job to go out there and spread love and help Jews wherever they are. And I feel the only way, anyone who can't look at somebody else, can't look at somebody else as themselves, then how are you helping others? So I really internalize, from my experiences, I really internalize that you can't judge other people. And one of the hats that I wear now, I kind of got into it because seminary and Jewish education is very expensive, but I'm a chaplain in the Department of Corrections, and I work with the incarcerated. And it's really that attitude that regardless of what they've done, and regardless of why they're there, and I guess I should say Baruch Hashem, but most of the incarcerated that I deal with are not Jewish. But I see human beings. I see people who have struggles like everybody else. Some of them have horrible stories, circumstances that brought them to where they are. Many of them accept and acknowledge what they've done wrong. But I try to treat them like equals, and they feel it. I try to treat them the same way I want to be treated.
Out of the 613 mitzvahs, is there one mitzvah that you're particularly more fond of than the others?
I think I kind of just said it.
But
I would tie that in with hachnasas orchim, with having guests. They both really go hand in hand for me. And I look at my parents and the Rebbe foremost as my guide to those. My parents are absolutely amazing. Like I said, as I said in the beginning, we grew up without money. In fact, we were probably one of the poor families in the Chicago community. But my parents loved having guests. And they never said no to anyone. My father, who would ride the L, he would ride to work every day on the train. And he's a holy man. He always has a sefer, always sitting there and learning. on the train. That was his opportunity to learn for an hour. And people would approach him, and he would invite them home. There was a homeless guy who came to us barefoot. There was another guy who was, and this is way before we had Whole Foods, but some guy who was like, vegan and vegetarian and all into natural stuff. I only know him as Yerachmiel, that my parents, sent off to Israel, and he made Aliyah. Wow. And he's a frum man today. And there are a lot of people my parents influenced, and they weren't. My mother and father will tell you they're not rabbi and rebbitzin. They're not. They're simple people in their mind. I think they're great, and they through hachnasas archim, through just opening the doors and just showing this warmth and empathy that I'm talking about, they affected many lives. I wouldn't even be surprised, collectively that they've. In their 45 years together, that they've affected. Many more neshamas than I have yet to get to. So I aspire to be like them, and I aspire to fulfill the Rebbe's vision of making this world a better place, one mitzvah at a time, one person at a time. Each Chabad Rabbi has their own style, and if you've had interactions, some of my colleagues are very assertive. Rabbi Gupin, who is the head of Chabad of Greater Hartford. I remember this. I'll just say Brandon because he's from today. Brandon, somebody just knew they could. So somebody meets Brandon on a bus and they bring him to me. Spend the whole Shabbos with me. But Shabbos afternoon, he's at a Farbrengen with Rabbi Gupin. And by the time Shabbos is over, Rabbi Gupin had him in yeshiva. I didn't accomplish that. But my style is, one mitzvah at a time. I don't pressure, I don't push. And it's the right approach for the students at University of Hartford. God willing, I'm leaving on Sunday to Eretz Yisrael. I have two boys, one alumni and one going into his sophomore year, who are going to go with me to Eretz Yisrael because they're going to yeshiva. And that's my nachas. And Baruch Hashem. So it all starts with opening your home, opening your hands, having love.
That's really beautiful. Okay, I think I'm going to know the next answer, but I'm curious to know why. If there's one person from history who's no longer with us, who would you spend an hour with?
So, this coming week is Gimel Tammuz. It's when the Rebbe passed away in 1994. So we're talking about 30 years since the Rebbe passed away. And I miss him now probably more than then. The Rebbe was more than just like a grandfather or just a rabbi. He was a father to us, a father to me, tremendous influence. I personally marvel, I really marvel at the young generation of Chabad youth going out there and continuing the Rebbe's mission. They never had a chance to meet the Rebbe. My daughter, who's married and with our first grandchild, is doing a fantastic job running Chabad at Syracuse University. Maybe I had a small part in it, but she also wants to continue the Rebbe's vision of our job's not done until we are able to help and affect each and every person. And for me, and some of my colleagues maybe see it differently, but for me, I wish I could hear the Rebbe's voice again. I want to hear the Rebbe's voice again. I miss when I was 15, 16 years old at the Farbrengen as 110 pounds, and I'm on one of the bleachers over there, and I have 2,000 pounds on my back. I didn't always appreciate it. I mean, I love making l'chaim to the Rebbe when he would look at us with that smile and drink a little wine. That was fantastic. But I was also in pain. It was physically tough to be on those bleachers with all the weight on my back. But now I'm like, one more minute, one more hour. I miss my Rebbe.
What if you could open up about it? What would you talk to him about? What would be the first question you would talk to the Rebbe about?
The first question that comes to mind, and I'm making a disclaimer over here. I work with college students. Maybe because of all my experiences, I'm less comfortable in a room full of 1,000 rabbis, and I'm more comfortable teaching and working with youth. So I don't necessarily say this b'shem Chabad, But I've brained about this. It's something that I've discussed with some of my colleagues when Gimel Tammuz has come around. Why? Where are you? The Rebbe taught us so much, and he opened our eyes to how the world was changing. Some people, especially now with October 7th and et cetera, look at the world and say, oh my gosh, it's getting darker. But that's not the vision of the Rebbe. The Rebbe taught us to see the light, taught us to see how the situation now is infinitely better than it was 1,000 years ago. The situation for Yidden now is infinitely better than it was 100 years ago. And, when communism fell, when Saddam Hussein started sending Scud missiles into Eretz Yisrael, and the world was protecting Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael didn't have to lift a finger. And when they had, at least at the time, the nuclear disarmament, all these beautiful experiences, all these things that were happening, to me was emes. To me, the Rebbe was saying, these are the signs of our times. These are the signs that the Geula is coming. This is a sign of the redemption. This is a sign of, we're ready for a world of true peace, true harmony, true unity, where everybody will accept one another. And Rebbe, why? Why are we 30 years later? Why are we still sitting here? Why are we still waiting? We want Mashiach. We want. Why October 7th? Why? Rebbe, we need you.
I have two more questions. The first question is there a story in your life that you didn't say, yeah, because I do think there's a bunch of them, that give you chizuk, give you strength? Whether it happened in your life or you heard it in your life, that it gives you a lot of strength.
So, you're right. It's hard to necessarily pick a single memory and say that's the only one. But I will say, you asked me earlier why it was so impactful, that yichidus, that interaction with the Rebbe. And for me, I've had my struggles. I've had times where things look difficult, or I question, am I the right guy for the job? Can I get it done? But in each and every step, I feel I've had revealed and open miracles that I credit to the Rebbe. 1995, it's a year after Gimel Tammuz. Just starting to learn smicha. I'm in Brussels, Belgium. The yeshiva closed down a little abruptly. Got to figure out where I'm going. This is after, I'd been in Eretz Yisrael for 5 years before that, and I was trying to figure out where to go next. Wasn't sure the right step for me. On the one hand, I wasn't quite an Israeli, but on the other hand, I wasn't quite an American at that point, having spent so much time in Eretz Yisrael, and maybe my complexion too. But I was asking for advice. I was getting different answers, and people telling me it's up to you. You got to figure it out. So there is a tradition by some. Personally, my mashpia, my mentor, taught me that in the name of the Rebbe, that there's a process that the Rebbe taught us. Aseh lecha rav v'knei lecha chaver. If you don't have, you have to have a mentor. You have to have mashpiim, rabbanim, people who guide you and help you. Speak to your close friends who know you well and get advice. But he did say, when all else fails, there's a makar for it, there's a source for it in Gemara. You write a letter to the Rebbe and see if the Rebbe will give you an answer. See if there's a way to answer. And as has become the tradition among Hasidim, many will write a letter. Same way they would write a letter if the Rebbe were, they were able to see the Rebbe. You wash your hands, go to the mikvah, and you put the letter inside one of the 30 plus volumes of Igros, Kodesh from the Rebbe, letters of the Rebbe. So I did it. I didn't know what to do. So I put the letter in, and I'm gonna make a disclaimer. I have done other letters since then. I don't do it that often, and I can't say that I always get answers. But this one experience told me the Rebbe is looking out for me. The Rebbe is there for me. I opened the Igros, and the first letter I see there is about learning in Eretz Yisrael, going to yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. Right there, top of the page. I even remember exactly where it was on the page. But I guess my Yitzhar, I wasn't ready for that. That wasn't the answer that I necessarily wanted. I was kind of inclined to want to go back to America. And I noticed when I closed the sefer, I noticed, it's the Igros Kodesh of the Rayatz of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe. I meant to write to the 7th Rebbe. So it was a mistake. It wasn't where I meant to put the notes. Let me do it again. So I take the note and I put it again in another Igros. And I open the Igros, and it has a bold case, uppercase lettering, all English. It was a letter the Rebbe had written to a Jewish news publication that was in New York at the time, telling them that the previous Rebbe told you what he wants. His instructions were very, very clear to you. I'm writing this in English, so there should be no doubt, and so it should be very clear to you what to do. I went back to Israel. I went back to Eretz Israel. I gave that story, but I jump ahead. Right when we bought our Chabad house, we had miracles buying our Chabad house. And when I buy our Chabad house, right away we're served a cease and desist. And that neighbor did not want us there. They were afraid of this Chabad house turning into fraternity parties, day and night, noise, music. They tried to shut us down. 2 years later, on the Chag Geula, the special day of Yutes Kislev, when the founder of Chassidus Chabad was released from prison, we got our written ruling that we were free to go. That there was no difference between us and the prior owners that had been in the property, and we were allowed to. It was a church owned property beforehand, and that we're back in business, or can't stop us. And ironically, in the case of the Alter Rebbe, even though he was freed on the 19th, the Chassidim weren't reunited with him until the 20th, because he got held up. And same thing with us. We got the written verdict and we got the results. We found out about it on the 20th of Kislev. So to me, that's a little divine providence and a little somebody telling me that, hey, our Chabad house is in good hands. And I say good hands because it's the Rebbe's hand. I say, despite whatever my strengths and weaknesses are, we're able to be shliach. I'm not a big fundraiser. I love working with the students. That's my strength. When I first came to Connecticut, I thought Rabbi Gupin would pay all the bills, and I would just work for him. And like I said, 7 years later, I was running my own Chabad house and trying to make ends meet. And if I have time, 2 quick stories. 2000, this is probably after we'd agreed we had our own Chabad house, maybe 2008, maybe 2009, right around there. 2007, actually. We're broke. We're raising our own budget now. It's all on us. Can't make ends meet. My wife's in New York for the kinnis, for the gathering of all the shlichos, of all the Rebbitzins, and I'm home with whichever was our baby at the time. I think it was Minnie. And my wife calls me for money for groceries, and I'm like, we don't have any money on the debit card. I don't have it right now. I felt really bad. She calls me back a little bit later and tells me, I want to tell you what happened. She said, I went into 770, and I just put it all out there. I said to the Rebbe, I said, you wouldn't want your shluchim, you wouldn't want those that are doing the outreach and doing your mission to have to struggle and suffer. She said after that, she left and went to go pick someone else to bring them to the banquet. They were going to go somewhere together. And a woman who she knew vaguely, but like no connection, just comes running out of her house. And when she saw her parked in front, said, look, I put aside this tzedakah. I wanted to give it to the next shluchah that I see to help them. And she gave her $200, I think it was $200 that helped her with the groceries that she wanted to buy. I said, my wife, you're not going to believe the rest of the story. I said, just this morning, probably around the same time, a friend of ours, simple Yid, a good man, still a very close friend, but without any big money or anything, didn't know we were struggling, I didn't tell anybody, comes knocking on my door that Sunday morning where I'm babysitting Minnie, and hands me a check for $1,800. I said, the Rebbe is looking out for us. And on a final note, I'm on Birthright in 2018, I want to say, maybe 2017. I'm in Israel, and I get a call at 3 a.m. I think it was 3 a.m. on a Saturday night, 3 a.m. I get a call from the Hartford Fire Department. And they tell me they're in my house. and again, I'm in Israel. My wife and the kids are at home. I said, I'm in your house. I'm like, is everything okay? What happened? And, I got all nervous. He said, well, you had a pipe burst, and your house literally has 2 feet of water. We're off a main pipe, so it was a disaster. And when they were trying to convince my wife to move into a hotel, but anyhow, at the time, we're like, oh my gosh, this is, why do we need this tsar? Why do we need this? This is a nightmare. But we spoke to the insurance adjuster, and he told us, you know what, this is actually a blessing. The house, the Chabad house, we loved it, but it was dreary, didn't have lighting. We just had guests for that Sukkot. Parents who were asking, like, why is our ceiling falling in? And, they're like, you got to fix it up. And we're like, we don't have the money, but okay. But because of this seeming disaster, we were able to, I had to raise a little money after that, but we were able to really transform the Chabad house. It's a beautiful Chabad house. And that to me is just yet one other example that the Rebbe is still guiding us and we're still doing his holy work.
Very powerful. Okay, I want to end off with this last question. I know we didn't talk about your MMA. There's a lot that we didn't talk about, so maybe a round 2. But for the last question, what advice would you give someone struggling, someone who's feeling shame, kind of maybe the way you felt growing up, and they don't feel like they don't feel at peace with themselves? What advice would you give to them?
I think I'm still on my journey myself. So if it's an interaction, then obviously I'm going to try to show them love. But if you're asking me as advice, I think I would validate their feelings. I think I would tell them it's okay to feel that way. Your lived experiences are your experiences. Your emotions are feel. I would not, because I've had people do this to me. I would not tell them it's insignificant. I would not tell them, forget about your feelings. But I would tell them, explore it. I would tell them, don't give up on it. The advice that I give, and again, not every rabbi agrees with me, but the strong advice that I fervently believe in, and I talk about this often with my students and families, whoever I deal with, is everybody has some struggle, everybody has some trauma, everybody has something that they have to work on. Not only is there no shame, everybody should have a therapist. I encourage my alumni, when they start dating, to from the beginning, involve a marriage counselor or a therapist to help guide them and mentor them so that the relationship will be stronger and better. You're dealing with emotions of shame, don't ignore it. I wish I had done it when I was younger. Speak to someone, work with someone, find the right fit for you, find the right person for you, and start your journey of healing.
I love that. Okay, Reb Yos, thank you so much for doing this, and
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Only Service Tov is only success for everybody.
Amen. Thank you so much for enjoying this week's episode. If you got this far, please leave the word fantastic, because Reb Yossi's journey is fantastic. As you all know, it's the Rebbe's 30th yahrzeit this week, and you can see more about the incredible legacy of the Rebbe at therebbe.org. And I want to highlight the Rebbe's amazing love for people. I just want to say thanks to this week's sponsors. First, the wonderful Bitbean. We love you. The best place to get a suit, Twillery. My friend Yankee with SBA Loans. Seriously, give him a call. He's so easy to talk to. And of course, our new favorite furniture hub, LexMod. Use code INSPIRE for 20% off. A timeless truth from Torah teaches us that the color of one's skin is irrelevant. What truly matters is the character and integrity within. This is a value that the Lubavitcher Rebbe stood for, emphasizing that our shared humanity and our inner virtues define us for more than any superficial traits. Moreover, what makes us different is what makes us who we are, and that diversity is not a bad thing. So, if you're listening, let us embrace this wisdom, fostering unity and respect for every individual, recognizing the divine spark within each of us. Rabbi Yossi is different, and that helps him be more empathetic and caring and understanding. And also, he's the same, because it's not about how we look, but the choices we make that makes us who we are. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim. Share this episode with someone that you think could give them chazak to. Thanks for watching. Living L'chaim.